When you look at decentralization, which to me, that's one of the most important words out there, because if people truly understand what that means, it's freedom.
Oh,
And for the first time, you truly have the ability to keep what you own. That's the word that I choose that I think is most important. If we can find a way to explain this to the world of what decentralization really means, and they understand it, then they won't be afraid of this.
welcome to Unlocking Commerce and Business. I'm Connie Davis. Like a lighthouse cutting through fog, this marketplace of voices illuminates where commerce systems break down and what's already working to repair them. We go deep into communities, exploring where pain hides behind financial systems, uncovering extraction patterns in relationships, blocks in money movement, and barriers creating economic instability for vulnerable populations. From survivors of economic abuse to system innovators, these conversations don't just diagnose, they point toward trauma-informed, human-centered solutions. Essential listening for collaborators, partners, funders, and changemakers building regenerative alternatives. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Now let's get into today's conversation. Okay, so welcome back. I'm Connie Davis, and I'm so excited about the conversation today that my guest, Collier Sparks, CEO of ATL Holdings, is here with me today. It is New Year's Eve, and we are literally leaning into 2026 with a conversation about transformation. Not the buzzword kind, not the kind that becomes this New Year's resolution like a new diet or a new workout routine. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to do a lot less of something so that we can gain more of something else. But the real kind that happens when you combine decades of industry experience with infrastructure and a strategy, and more importantly, a vision that actually serves people. So if you caught my Christmas Eve episode, and I hope you did, I talked about elves. I talked about a new workshop, and an invitation was issued to all of the people out there that are building something. And I've already found a community leader who stepped outside and decided to build something unprecedented. But what caught my attention about Collier's story isn't just the market opportunity that we're going to talk about today. It's his what and his why story. So today you're going to feel the heart of a CEO. Collier is addressing some extreme opportunities and system risks that traditional models ignore. So we're going to talk about that. But remember those little elves that we spoke about last week, the one that are ready to prove that we can build with purpose for the future? Those future generations and those conversations are not separate. And we're going to bring them together today in a really big way. And that's the conversation that I'm excited to have Collier here with me today to do. So Collier, welcome to the show. I
Thank
am
you.
super honored that you are here to have this conversation about what does a traditional CEO look for as we lean into the future of 2026 about an industry that you're learning about, that you've been studying. And as you look at your industry that you're in, it's an industry that's really near and dear to my heart and my family as a woman who has a car, and my partner who actually is a mechanic, and every American family that depends on their vehicles to get from point A to point B. So we're going to reminisce a little bit before we get into the business part. And as you think about your beginning, let's take us through that beginning. What is your first memory of your industry?
Well, it actually wasn't an industry at the time. And Connie, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. It's exciting for me, and I think it might help explain some things within our industry that hasn't been spoken about. So, as you can tell, I'm not a young mechanic out there working on vehicles, but it did start quite a few years ago. I think I was 12, and
Yeah.
my father had absolutely no mechanical capabilities at all. I don't know that he knew the difference between a spare tire and a battery. But when I was always a kid that liked tinkering with things. I took things apart and usually couldn't put them back together. And when I was 12 years old, somebody told my dad that he needed the carburetor rebuilt on his 1966 Ford LTD station wagon. Tells you how old I am. So I convinced him, instead of spending $150 or whatever it was to let me rebuild it, and it would cost him $8.
Big
So
difference.
he bought a carburetor kit, and he thought I was going to probably tear it up, and I wasn't sure that I would or wouldn't. So this is way before the internet, way before YouTube. Seen a couple of magazines at the barber shop in the past that had some exploded views of parts of vehicles. I said, somebody put that together. I bet I can take it apart. So I did. And I took it apart, and I'm soaking it in a bucket of gasoline to try to get all the old corrosion off of it. And it was in the wintertime, and my mom started screaming at me to get that bucket of gas out of the house because there's a little gas furnace downstairs, and it was warm. So I got it out of the house. So I put the carburetor back together, put it on the car, and then lo and behold, it started. And I was really proud of what my dad had done. And my dad just told me, it's just pure luck. You didn't know what you were doing. You just got lucky. But that kind of followed me throughout my life. I always enjoyed messing with vehicles. I went to college, and I came into the first part of what I considered the community. Mm. I worked on people's cars as a hobby, but also when I needed something done to mine, we traded out. So there was a guy that lived when I was in college, he lived down the street from me, and he was a great body guy and paint guy, and I wanted some pinstripes on my Camaro. And he needed a water pump put on his Buick. I said, I'll put that water pump on your Buick if you'll pinstripe my car. Mm. So we traded, and we worked together for doing things like that. And I found other people that did those things. So we didn't have the money. We're college kids, right? So we didn't have the money. But we could find ways within a community that we could lean on everybody's capabilities, and it was a win-win for everyone. So, those were things that I did, and I've always played with vehicles. My background was in the technology world. I was CEO of a public company, the oldest and largest manufacturer of access control software in the world. And I got out of that in 2010 and took a year off, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And somebody said, why don't you try to get in the automotive business? Well, I ended up getting a used car lot, and we sold a lot of light-duty diesel trucks to the oil field in South Texas. And what I found out is nobody knew how to work on them. So I opened a shop. So we started working on diesel trucks. And the selling of them is the quickest way I ever found in which to lose money. But working on them is actually profitable. So I got rid of the sales part, and we started just doing the repair business, opened up a larger shop, moved into a current location. And there was a guy across the parking lot from me that we did diesel work. He did gas work. We ended up putting the two businesses together. We bought the real estate, and the rest is history. We started looking at buying shops to acquire. And so we've been doing that for the last 7 years. And we've been watching the industry. I have specifically watching the industry and how things have moved and gone around the industry. But it's just we're at an evolutional point in this industry that if we don't fix it, it's going to go away forever. Mm. We are losing people. We're losing talent. General Motors has just announced that they're spending $245 million on training programs and apprenticeships for their manufacturing. Okay, well, that'll teach you how to build a motor, but it won't tell you how to repair a motor. So this is something that happened in the trade schools years and years ago, that you either went to shop or you play sports. And that is gone. That has disappeared from our industry. That's why we have such a vast void for people. And that is one of the things that is near and dear to my heart, to be able to bring something back that used to be on every street corner. You used to have mom and pop shops all over the place, and they've just disappeared. Well, there's a reason for that, and it's the age of the industry, and the young people would rather play video games and get their hands dirty. You make a very good living in the trades world. It's just that the trades are almost non-existent. So one of the things that we want to do, and I'm passionate about, is trying to bring that back to the industry, because without it, we are all going to be in the desert. There's going to be an absolute desert out there. And one of the things that I ask people, I said, Name one thing that you own that you have to have professional service done to that thing you own 3 to 4 times a year. Okay, it's not a plumber. If your sink leaks, you call a plumber, but it's not something you do on a maintenance type of program. It's not the doctor. If your foot hurts, you go to the doctor, but if you don't worry about it. What do you have to do? What's the one industry out there that you have to go see a professional? It's your automobile. There's no other industry that requires that you go seek professional service 3 or 4 times a year.
And I
So
think that Collier, that's one of the most vulnerable things that I, as a woman, right? I
certainly,
am dependent on these shops that I have to have a professional. Not every woman is taught how to work on a car.
well,
You
and
know, we're
you're
so there's
right.
some,
They've gotten so complicated, nobody can work on them anymore.
yeah,
When you used to go, the first thing they would do is raise the hood and they start looking at things. Today, you plug a computer in. So, and the software is expensive and it belongs to so few that you don't have the ability to do a DIY thing. You can't go to Google and go to YouTube and figure out how to do these things because the information isn't available. And
right.
so the technology's grown, which puts every owner in peril, but that's just the nature of the beast. So we have to fill a void because we cannot live without mobility. It's impossible. So the community aspect of what we're doing and how we're trying to bring all this back and the other trades, this isn't just automobiles, but there are other trades that fall into this category as well. So, it's we have a dream and we have a vision of what we think that needs to happen. And and it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not worth doing, but these are things that truly make sense. And it's things that will help everybody that's out there. So that's what we're trying to do is help the world.
I love that mission. And it's always something that I love to do is talk about the mission is important, the what and the why. And what's really, I think, phenomenal about your particular mission and story is that you're leaning into solving a problem at a community level across many communities already. Like that's woven into the fabric of your company at
It is.
ATL Holdings. And it's woven into all of the messaging. And I can feel it from your heart coming forward that this matters. And when we think about, you mentioned the technician shortage. And I think you said, or we've talked about it before, like hundreds of thousands of positions. It's not a labor problem. So, how does this shortage create community vulnerability? Can we talk about that? Because a lot of the work that I do is how do we unlock where communities are locked up, where things aren't flowing? And you already mentioned I'm, involved with transportation problems here in Florida. You're in Texas, and not getting people where they need to be is a mobility problem. You already said that. But what happens when there's what could happen here if you were to look in the future if someone was to do nothing?
Well, it's like we mentioned a moment ago. I mean, you will become a a product of the manufacturer. The only one that's left to work on the vehicle is the one that made it. And there's a reason that independent auto repair centers are there. The manufacturers are interested in selling vehicles. Working on them is secondary for them. They keep your vehicle forever. Means you can't get to work. You can't go to the doctor. You can't take your kids to soccer practice. Your ability to be mobile stops when that goes away. So the independent auto repair industry is an $82 billion a year business. And there's 200,000 shops in the country. And they've been there for 100 years. So when you look at just the infrastructure that exists, as fragmented as it is, it's an absolute necessity to our country and to the community. And without it, we stop.
Right.
So it is one of it's a premier requirement of any community to be able to keep this going. And it provides a lot of things for a community. It provides revenue. It provides jobs. It provides so many things that are necessary. I mean, when we had COVID, we were an essential business,
I
which
bet.
means we couldn't close. Well, why couldn't we close and everybody else did? Well, because if a cop needs to get to work, we have to fix his vehicle. If a nurse or a doctor needs to get to work, we have to be available. So we were required to be open as an essential business during COVID. Well, that tells you how important this industry is. You don't think about this industry. It's an afterthought. I've gone to see Bob for 20 years, and my parents did, and I know Bob, and I trust him, and he's always taking care of me. Well, Bob's getting old. Bob's going to retire, or Bob's going to die. And when those things happen, it creates the desert that we mentioned, is you don't have anywhere to go. So when you look at the people that are in this business and they're doing the roll-ups and they're trying to do the things with private equity and some of the other guys, they have a specific niche that they're looking for. They don't look at a community, they look at a dollar. And what we want to do is look at it from a different perspective. We want to look at it as a community, and we're trying to assist the community. We're trying to keep the community whole and make it something that it used to be and bring that back. And the other thing that we do is all of our employees are stakeholders in our company. So everybody becomes part of the community. And that's what we want to do. We've got 3 basic pillars that we operate with. And we're buying shops that are cash flowing shops. We're also buying the real estate. The real estate's a component that is the largest asset that the shop owner has. That's his exit strategy. And if he can't sell it, then he really can't sell his shop, because the shop has a certain valuation to it, whereas the real estate's going to be 2 to 3 times greater than the value of the shop. The other thing is that our main goal is we have to re-educate the young people of this country. And I'm seeing a direction that young people are going. They have been through I got $100,000 worth of debt, and I've got a college degree that teaches me how to go to work and be an assistant manager at McDonald's. Okay, and I've got a lot of debt, and so all I'm doing is living in my parents' house, trying to pay my student loan. Well, how about if you learn a trade? How about if you find to re-educate yourself in something that actually pays you a decent living? And we can take the selfish direction and say we're just doing this for the automotive industry, but our belief is we don't just need to do that. We need to do it for welding. We need to do it for HVAC manufacturers and service providers. We need to do it for carpentry. We need to do it for a lot of different industries, not just automotive, but we are building our own infrastructure for personnel. And we have to do that because the rest of the country has abandoned it. They put it in the higher education world, and that's where all the money is. Well, we know that's not true. If you can make $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year as an A-tech working on flag for a service provider, a shop, and you still own part of it, what better deal are you going to find? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I'm
I
sorry.
think that and sorry to interrupt, I think that there's there's a really strong theme that you're calling here, and there's a convergence of, we are seeing the debt, we're seeing the emotional cycle that the debt takes when we collect all this. We're like, how do we get out from under it? But we're also seeing an explosion, at least here in Florida, and I believe that the schools in Texas are doing the same thing. We're seeing an exit and a shift in the school strategy. We're seeing homeschooling go up, tinkering with hands-on tactical learning rise, because you can only learn so much from a screen.
That's
And the
correct.
children and the kids are salivating over the opportunity to build something with their hands.
Yes.
And we're seeing that in the schools, and we're seeing that in the individual just intention to learn at the child by child level, in the family, in the community, in the school. And we're seeing an explosion in the retail market on Amazon of an increase of tactile learning tools, building blocks, Legos. All of that stuff is exploding. What does that tell you, Collier? What is that kind of singing to you?
It tells me that everything revolves in a circle. And what we're doing is we're coming back around to where we were 40 years ago, to where young people see the value of hard work and manual labor. And they see that because they've watched their brothers, sisters Even mothers and fathers, in some cases, really struggle with just a college degree when there's no jobs available. But then you see that all these jobs are available and there's no one there to fill them. Well, these kids aren't stupid. Give them credit where credit's due. They see this as an opportunity, and I'm young and I'm capable and I want to do something with my life. And guess what? One of the other things that we teach in our schools, or our plan to, is not only how to twist a wrench and fix something, we're going to teach you how to run a business.
Wonderful.
Because one of the things that happens is after you've been a tech for 5 to 10 to 20 years, where's your mobility? Where can you go up? Is there any up? Absolutely. Do I have to start my own shop? No. You just move up in one of the ones that you're already a part of.
Yeah.
So your community has the ability for upward and sideways movement within the existing platform that you're in. So it just gives it goes all the way to retirement. And that's what we want to be able to do. When my parents were in the working environment, you had a pension, you had a retirement plan. Who's got that today? Unless you're a government employee, you have to make it unless you make enough money to put in a 401k. How about if our community provides that for you? How about if we're the ones that help you with that part of your life and help you in the retirement stage? And we do the things we're not going to tell you how to live your life, but we're going to help you every step of the way. And that's what our plan is.
Yeah, and I love it. I want to take back to a word you used about value, because the value is subjective. Value is subjective at an individual level, and there's an exchange of, value exchange. And you talked about it when you were 12, that there was value being exchanged between painting and working on a car.
Right.
And exchanging value between individuals is literally what the future of technology is going to restore for us. And I'm going to use the word restore because here's the opportunity. And I talked about this in my Christmas Eve episode. And here we are on New Year's Eve, thinking about leaning into the future using a transformational technology. And for those of you that know me, I love to talk about three things. I love to talk about emotions that keep us stuck. I love to talk about commerce and the exchange of value between people. And I love to talk about blockchain and digital asset and digital ledger technology. That is the future. That's where we're going. And Collier is on a mission with his vision and his company to lean into this new technology. So let's talk about that. So let's talk about where this transformation potential came for you, Collier. And as you imagined this shop environment across the country with the thousands of shops that are readying for retirement, the owners are looking to age out, send the business into the next hand of the owner. There's real estate there. How do you see tokenization and blockchain technology? When you first learned about it, tell me what that experience was like for you and how you've come full circle on that.
Well, old dog, new tricks, right? So it's hard to get it through my thick skull every now and then. But what I understand is when you look at decentralization, which to me that's one of the most important words out there, because if people truly understand what that means, it's freedom.
Oh,
And for the first time, you truly have the ability to keep what you own. And that's that's the word that I choose that I think is most important. If we can find a way to explain this to the world of what decentralization really means, and they understand it, then they won't be afraid of this, because this is a fear factor. Okay, this is something new. This is something different. You're going to ask me to take my money out of my bank and do something else with it, like put
right.
it in a token? What is that? I mean, when I first started looking at this, I don't think I could spell crypto. But the thing is once you understand this and you see how fair it is, how fair and how honest and how transparent, and how you can see things that you can't see. You can't see inside a bank. You don't have any idea where that money is that you've got in your account, but I can promise you it's not in cash sitting in your bank. So you don't know where things are. And we think we do, but we really don't. And if we can just open the world to see how common and simple this is, that the tokenization is something that you control, you can do it what you want, and nobody's going to tell you how to do it. So that to me is where this just when you think of it that way, you think of regulations and no regulations or
Mm-hmm.
minimal. But
Yep.
you find truth, you find stability, you find transparency. You don't know what's in that bank, but you know what's in that blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what your token's about, and you know where it is, and you know who's got it, and you can trade it. It's yours. You can do the same thing with it you can with a chunk of cash. It's the same thing. And once you realize it's the same but different in a good way. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying. That's what I learned is we can take these assets and we go out and we buy the real estate and we buy the shops and we buy, we build the schools, we do all these kind of things. And it's being part of the community where we all community own these tokens and these assets. And then you can do with it what you want.
Yeah.
I said it's freedom. It's absolute freedom to be able to do what you want to do with what you own. So that's where the real important, and that's what just explained it to me very quickly, is that you have control over your destiny here.
You absolutely do. Okay, so this is a quick break, partnership acknowledgement. I got to do this because this episode is powered by really transformational partnerships with organizations building the infrastructure for what I call communion-based commerce. First, I have to call out Investify. They're doing amazing things in the credit union and community bank space. And they were my first startup and into this whole co-founder experience and immersing into building human-centric financial technology. Next is Prime Ledger, bridging traditional finance with digital asset innovation. Conduit Labs, creating pathways for institutional adoption and proving economic activity on their protocol. Check them out. Women in Blockchain Talks, Lavinia has been amplifying voices, building a call and an opportunity for inclusive Web3 ecosystems, and love her energy. She's done a lot in this space over the last 5 years. And last but not least, the Bitcoin Bay Foundation, fostering financial literacy and economic empowerment with Bitcoin right here in Tampa Bay. That lends into and flows all in things into right here in Florida to the Florida Business Blockchain Association. Huge call out for their efforts to connect Main Street businesses to emerging technology. All of these are passionate creators with a human-centric technology lens. And the elves in the Decentralized workshop that we talked about in our FinTech Carol are building tools that serve people, not extracting from them. They understand that the best technology is invisible until you need it, accessible when you're ready for it, and designed to expand human capacity rather than replace human connection. So let's go have a thriving 2026. And I think that the word decentralization, you use the word immutable, you use the word transparency, you use the word, recorded assets. Those are all the things that we're talking about. Those are the principles of digital ledger technology,
Yeah.
tokenization, digital assets, and the transparency and trust that it can restore. And there's other businesses, obviously, business models that are out there where we don't have transparency. We don't own our own data. We know that things are kind of happening behind a centralized entity. And I think we've all seen examples in the traditional world of lack of transparency and trust. We've seen that go bad.
Oh
We've
yeah.
also seen it go bad in the decentralized world where lack of transparency and trust can also not work. But we're talking about human intention. And the reason I asked you that question, Collier, is because this episode is about showing the heart of a CEO that really cares about the mission. And it's not just about profit. And you're a shining example of the intention that we can have in a community to unlock and clear the roadblocks for the commerce to flow, value exchange to occur, and the redistribution of wealth to happen where there's assets and there's knowledge, and we can capture that using digital ledger technology. So I'm really excited to get into kind of the next step here. And I want to think about how your redistribution strategy works or what you're thinking and why it's practical to think about steering your company in this direction for real estate ownership and workforce development and how tokenization can amplify that redistribution strategy.
Well, I think everything that we've been talking about basically, defines that. And when we take, and I said that employees are owners of the company, they actually are. And it doesn't matter if you sweep the floor, you're the top tech, or you run the shop. It doesn't make any difference. You're an owner, and that's one of the things that, everybody says, what sets you apart from private equity firms? I said, greed. We're not greedy people. We believe that if you share, it all comes back to you, and that's one of the things that we do. We um, our motto is family, not franchise, and that's exactly what we mean. Franchise stores, there are a lot of them. Oil chains, they have to make a certain amount of money, and when you do that, that means you took advantage of somebody somewhere to do that this week because it was a slow week, and we will not put up with that. The problem with Billy Bob's Garage has gone away is you lost your integrity, your trust, and everything that you used to have. And so now you're dealing with a national brand that is literally looking out for the almighty dollar. And it'll take care of itself. Okay, it really will. People will come to you because they trust you. People will come to you because they won't look anywhere else. Once you find a mechanic, you don't go anywhere else. That's the only person you want to see. So we already have a built-in advantage because we're small and we're local. But being part of the bigger community gives you the ability to control your destiny.
Yeah.
And today, if you're just an employee, you're just an employee. There's nothing else for you to do. But we want to give everybody the opportunity to be as much as they want to be. And that's just how we are. That's been our vision, and we want everyone to be successful. And if we all in the community are pulling in the same direction, we will be. So by tokenizing these assets, we have more ability to provide income to people. We one of the things that I think I spoke with you about is we want to have quarterly meetings where we bring women in and we show them how, don't be taken advantage of. And if you go down this path and you start seeing, somebody says, well, it's going to cost this, but now it's going to cost this. Wait, I need a second opinion. And don't be afraid to say I'm taking it out. And we want to be able to help train these things. This is how you check your oil. I mean, just simple things. And we started with women. What we found out is that the guys have been sitting on their, for the last 20 years playing video games. They don't know much more than the women do. So just take that for
Yeah.
what it's worth.
I'm hearing
So
that too in the female community. It's like, who do I find to work on my
yeah.
car?
So I mean,
So, yeah.
we want to educate everybody because there's
Yeah.
no secrets here. And it shouldn't be secretive. We're not trying to hide anything. We want everybody to be happy with what they get, and they get value for what they receive. So
Mhm.
these are the things that we're trying to accomplish. So I just think that our overall program, if you pull all of it together, there's not one piece that's better than the other. All three have to work concurrently because
Yeah.
they are tied together, even though one's not necessarily reliant on the other.
Mhm.
I'm a tenant as a shop owner, and I'm the landlord is a real estate owner. It just happens to be in two companies that we're associated with, but one's paying the rent. You're going to pay it anyway. So,
Yeah.
it's just common sense. And that's all we try to do is bring it back to common sense and the things that we know that the country needs, that the industry needs. We want to see if we can't be the provider for that.
I love it. I love it. Let's go back to those young people that you talked about for a second. And we
My
know that there's a
grandkids.
technician shortage, right? And we've
Yeah.
talked about, where some of them are kind of, starting to see, well, maybe there's something over here in the trades. And they're coming out of school, they got the debt. But is there a trust problem, and how you're solving the trust problem with transparency using digital ledger technology and the blockchain to offer a stable middle class future for the youth who can solve that, fidget. I want to create something. I want to do something with my hands, not just sit behind a screen. Because at some point, that screen is going to push you out into the community. You're going to still need human connection. You're going to still have a creative thirst for innovation and building something. That's what humans are created for. So, how do you see blockchain creating maybe like career pathways? Let's talk about that, where you start teaching them how to run the business, do the mechanic stuff, but where progress, earning, and ownership opportunities are verifiable. Let's talk about that because blockchain helps us do that.
Well, it does, and that's one of the things that we if you could tie that into the earlier part of the conversation where they're actually stakeholders in the assets, we will put them through school. It doesn't have to be just a young student. It could be somebody coming out of the military, somebody that has been working at McDonald's with a college degree and wants a better opportunity. We want to make this for everyone. We are and have been a second chance company. We've hired people with backgrounds that a lot of companies wouldn't and can't hire. But you have to be open to every opportunity that we find out there as well. But we give them the opportunities to do a lot of different things. They can go in different industries. The educational piece of what we want to provide for them is the foundation that allows them to go and be successful in anything that they want to do that is trade related. So that's what it is. So I mean, the trade schools that that used to be around 20 years ago literally did just that. I mean, you got an ASE certification in the automotive world, and the more certificates you get, the more money you can make, and the more money you can make, the more assets that you own, and you can earn additional equity by being certain types of employees. I mean, so this doesn't stop, and it
Right.
just continues to grow, and it continues to help mature the people that we try to bring it through this program. And we would like to see the same type of program happen in other industries. It's
I
not
think you're
just us.
setting an example for that.
Yeah, well,
I
and
think it's
we'd like to, again, bleeding edge of technology here. So, we really want to see if this can help move forward a strategy, because you mentioned earlier the things that are happening in schools being taught at home. Charter schools have been a huge thing in Texas, where the school districts and school systems have lost students, which is their revenue base. They've lost students, and now they have empty buildings. They don't have anything to do. They'd love to put a trade school in, but they don't know how to. I mean, again, they need help, and they can also help us at the same time. So, we see a lot of synergies between every public school district that's out there today, because they're all in trouble. And the whole country is, from a technology perspective. We might be good with AI, we might be good at writing software, but when it comes down to being able to fix the problems that exist in this country, we are very lean in that capability today.
all right. I think that the what and the why is really here. Let's lean in a little bit to, let's lean into the future. Let's say, in 2026, you have this profitable business today. You have profitable locations operating today. Let's talk about that profitability. And I know you sit in your, you sit in your office, and I know you're looking out and going, okay, I've got this really great vision, and you've got these four, 5-star ratings on your shops. You're building a profitable business today. When you look to scale, how is blockchain? Why did blockchain click in for you as infrastructure that can let those shops really continue to be this community network? And I love that you've got this vision to protect and preserve that in the community level so we avoid the deserts. But what was that moment, Collier, that clicked for you in the blockchain piece as far as you looking at the scalability of your company?
Well, when we know that you have over approximately 200,000 locations that are active today, that they're going to need somebody to come in and save them, because the owners started it 30, 35 years ago, and they're just worn out. And so we see that there is going to be a massive void in the next 9 to 10 years. And if we don't do something now to try to prop it up and to get moving in a direction and utilize, uh, let's take an owner for example. Let's say that we launched this thing, and all of a sudden people start calling us, okay, and they're saying, can I join your organization? Well, guess what? We just added to the organization. I didn't buy their company, but we bring them into our portfolio of buying power, technology, everything that we do as far as optimization, efficiencies, everything that we do, we bring them under our wing, under our umbrella. And all of a sudden, without having to acquire everything, we now have them as part of our community. So we now become what I've always said I didn't want to be, which is a national brand. But if we can be successful in doing this can be done anywhere in the world. Anywhere that you have vehicles that require maintenance, which if you have vehicles, they require maintenance. Anywhere in the world, this can be done. So, we're looking at Texas and then Florida and some other parts of the country that we want to move into. But once you look at the overall scheme of these things, it's massive, and it's not going away, not intentionally anyway. So,
Yeah.
we're just trying to fill that void before this does happen.
So let's talk about the stakeholders because there's a real synthesis opportunity here. And you've been talking about the community that you want to serve with the schools and the need to solve the schools, and create opportunities as far up the kind of chain of where student interest actually kind of starts and capturing that and then ushering them into a real achievable future where they can see that American dream materialize in front of them, doing something maybe that they hadn't thought of. But there's a synthesis. Who are the stakeholders in a community for an auto shop? And
Oh,
so you can actually call, if you were to call them in right here on this episode and say, let's have a conversation about how we solve this to prevent the auto mechanic desert for your community, who would you want to talk to?
let's talk to every county commissioner. Let's talk to every mayor. Let's talk to everybody on the school board. Let's talk to every bank. Let's talk to every credit union. Let's talk to everybody that's out there that is involved in the community, because this is no different. This, again, goes back to name one thing that requires service. Only one. If you can think of another, please send me an email, because nobody's been able to do it yet. That requires you to do this from a professional organization 3 to 4 times a year, not once, 3 to 4 times a year. So, and how important is that thing to you? Well, it's dire. I mean, you have to be able to go. So when you start looking at it, whether it's the police cars, whether it's the ambulances, whether it's the school bus, anything that's associated with mobility, that's what we're talking about here. And there is not a city, there's not a county, there's not anything in this country. I mean, even in Texas and West Texas, where they have more horses than they do vehicles, you still have to get the vehicle serviced. So, I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. This industry it's not as old as it is if it could be replaced. It can't.
Right.
So every community must have this, and they have to understand it has to start with elected officials, financial institutions, educational institutions. That's where you need to go, because they will promote this, because they can bring the students in, they can bring the young people in. You can go to, you got people that don't have the funds to be able to fix things. Instead of them paying 28% APR on a note, we work with certain financial institutions that can bring them in as a customer and start working with them, and there's so many synergies that we have here that are community related in the leadership of the communities. That's where we have to start.
Yeah, I think you're 100% accurate. And I think that what I'm hearing is an invitation to collaborate. And on my
Absolutely.
Christmas Eve episode, I said that. I said, the blockchain elves, the decentralized elves that have been building, and here we are, it's New Year's Eve. And we're like, okay, as we lean into the new year, if you're in a position as a change maker or as a city official, a county commissioner, and you're wondering, how do I help my communities? And you're looking at the infrastructure that is failing in some places and thriving in others, Collier just issued an invitation to collaborate. Not that you have to go out and solve it your own and reinvent the wheel. He's figured this out and he knows this industry. And so I'm really great. I'm really glad to hear that you've got these stakeholders in mind. They're right at the heart of who you want to talk to. And I'm hoping that this podcast really helps us convey, that invitation. And I think that that's what you're offering is let's unlock the mobility issues and the transportation issues in communities.
That's absolutely correct, and it's just it's such an important thing that everybody here is passionate about it, and it's not about what we're going to do tomorrow. It's what are we going to do to help fix this in the long run, and so
Right.
that's our mission, that's our goal, and
Right.
maybe we can get it out there. That's what I'm trying to do.
So what would change? And I just want we're going to do a crystal ball. This is Collier's crystal ball leading into 2026. What would change if 250,000 shops, as you said, could transact, share resources, build collective power on a decentralized blockchain? And you were at the helm of making sure that that happened, Collier.
You would own the industry. You would control the industry. You would have so much where we lack today in our industry is because of the manufacturers that are out there that want to replace us. They know that we're the bad guys because we don't charge as much as they do. They want to keep the laws at least allow us to have technology that it's 2 years old before they have to release it. But if you could have current, and again, you could bring dealerships into this as well. You could bring new car dealerships into this community as well. We can all work together. They've got a backlog of vehicles that they can't get to for 3 months. Why don't you work with the local guys to help get them out? You're charging $250 an hour. We charge $150 an hour. We do it for $150. You make $100. It's just simple. It's common sense. And if you could corral a 250,000 shop organization, the control that you would have, the power, the voice that you would have within an industry, is you would control it. So you could make everybody follow the same guidelines and the same rules. And if we could do that, then it would be a wonderful world.
It's a courageous conversation for sure to talk about collaboration. And collaboration, let's talk about the people for a second. Let's talk about the mechanics that are collaborating already in today's environment. And they collaborate in such a way that they're listening for symptoms of a vehicle. Some things are sound, and I've seen my boyfriend for sure listen to the engine. I'm like, what is it that you hear? I don't hear anything, but you're hearing something, and you already are pinpointing to something.
Right.
But there's a collaboration that's already happening today without any technology. So how do you see that flowing into the future too?
Well, that it's interesting that you say that because we all have certain talents, right? And some of us have talents that we can read a book, or we understand math, or we understand chemistry, and we know how to work with certain things. But there are people that know how to work with their hands, and they can translate things with their hands to their brain. And it's to be a diagnostician, be able to diagnose something. I can't say the word. That is rare. But that comes through experience, and that comes from working with someone else that used to know how to do this, and you learn from them. So we already have a community. It's just a very small community, and all of the techs work together and they help one another, and that's just how they work. And so everything's already there. We just haven't expanded upon it. So but to be able to understand these things, and when a vehicle comes in, the first three things to look for, because that's the most common issue with that vehicle. And how do you learn it? Experience. And that's what we have to do. And when you see all these guys that are getting old, we better grab hold of them quick, because, by the way, who do you think are going to be the teachers in our schools? It's these guys that are 65 years old and they don't want to be out there under a vehicle anymore. We're going to bring them in and let them be the instructors to be able to teach the young kids and show how you can learn as you go. And so it is hands-on, and it has to be, because this is the one thing AI will never replace.
Right.
It will never replace a human being that can go and fix this. I can take it apart, diagnose it, and put it back together. There's not a machine out there that can do that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and I know that it's a skill. It's like the doctor. It's like the person drawing blood out of your, it takes
Yeah,
practice, and it takes
completely.
practice and due
Oh,
diligence and
that's right.
intention. So I love that. So, I I don't know that people hear automotive repair and blockchain together very often. So, if we think about something bigger, and I love that you're talking about communion-based commerce. You're saying, I'm inviting you in. Let's be stakeholders in the same industry together. Let's work on models for payment of the mechanic repair. Let's work on how do we secure the shops in your community. And there's a difference, though, that is, going from where you're at today with private equity and kind of the threat there. And you've talked about that through the episode. What's the difference for you as far as like how would that can actually flow much seamlessly? Where does the contracts and the agreements and some of the ways that you're thinking about integrating this technology into your company, how are you going to find efficiencies? Because I know you're looking at that too.
Oh, of course. And efficiency is something we work on every day. We measure it. We look at a technician's performance. We look at a shop's performance.
Mhm.
We watch the tax rolls on the real estate. I mean, there's so many things that we have to do on a regular basis just to make sure that we're as efficient as we possibly can. But what you don't have anywhere, and it goes back to the transparency issue. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if you can't see it, and if you can't understand it, then you don't know where you stand at any particular point in time. But by being transparent in the blockchain and that environment, you actually know where you are. And if adjustments need to be made, you can start to make them then. You don't have to wait until you've already gone down the road 3 to 4 months and found out that you have a problem. So now that we can see what we're doing on day one, and you've got customers that can see what's going on, I'd like to be able, you know exactly where your vehicle is at all times. You know what's going on with it. You know what you start putting we do DVI, which is digital visual inspection. We do those types of things, but there's 15 different applications out there. Let's take the one that fits for everybody, and we all use the same thing. And you get approvals, and you get videos, and you get pictures of things that are wrong with your car. You approve it. We get a fish in the fact that it comes back in. The parts are automatically ordered. It comes in, and you have centralized purchase. I mean, there's so many things that we could do. That being in a fragmented industry the way that we are, it's just it's mind-boggling as to how you can get more efficient.
Wow. And I hear this word kind of coming into my awareness here of like standardization. You're talking about standardizing the process flow so that
Yeah.
your customer has a more experience that's less friction and more, aligned with what they're trying to do is get back on the road.
Right. And if you go to one shop, you're gonna be treated exactly the same way as you would at another shop.
Right.
And you don't have to worry because yes, you still have the human element involved, but you remove certain obstacles that keep you from being completely honest with people. And so by doing those things, you have to measure it and you have to monitor it, but you make sure that everybody is treated the same way because at that point everybody trusts everybody. And that's just like the blockchain and transparency. I mean, we're not hiding anything. We don't work for free. We can't. Everybody has
Right.
to make a living. So and that's fair. But you don't bring your vehicle in and expect it to be free,
Yeah.
but you expect it not to be taken advantage of. And we're going to tell you this is a fair price. And if you pay more than that, you're being ripped off. I was in the construction world for quite some time in my life, and somebody comes in, you bid work, and you bid the job at half the value of 3 other bidders. Guess what? You missed something. It also means you're not going to finish the job because you're going to run out of money. So you just take a common sense approach to everything that we do, and it's not magic. It's just not magic.
Oh, I love it. Well, and the magic is what we're trying to return to the business,
Yeah,
right? And we're trying to return the magic of doing business, building a business, exchanging your value in communities, and then bringing communities back together. And I love that that's really where your heart is on this mission, Collier. The team that surrounds you, you guys are doing amazing things. You're leaning in with a vision that, you know, to now, up until now, we've only seen in the banking industry, right? We're seeing the financial industry really lean into blockchain with tokenized deposits. We're seeing, the playing field being kind of prepared. The question is who's going to step into the playing field besides the bankers? And I love that, in the automotive industry, you're already at the helm, at the bleeding edge of technology, saying, let's figure out how to do this. Let's figure out how to protect and preserve this industry and the trust that's known in this communities. So
that's
thank you for
correct.
the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you, and you just don't know how much I appreciate this opportunity because we're trying to get the word out, and you can be I know you're a great cheerleader for us on that, and I really really do appreciate it.
That's amazing. So, New Year's message out to your industry. What would you say to say Happy New Year and to get ready for what in 2026, Collier?
Happy New Year, and let's have the best 26 we've ever had.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show with us. I can't wait to see what you do next year. And I'm just really excited for the industry that you serve. They're so lucky to have you.
Connie, thank you so much.
All right. Hang
Happy
tight.
New Year.
You're welcome. Thank you. Happy New Year to you. So, the elves in their decentralized workshop, we just talked about them with Collier and I. These Web3 and blockchain builders, they've been crafting new tools while many of us were doing other kinds of work. And here's what I've learned. These tools, they're not threatening. They're not some exclusive club with coded language that is designed only for them or to keep us out. You see, these builders, they're just craftspeople. Think of them as craftspeople, making technology and infrastructure for a different kind of economy. But here's the thing, and this is my promise to anyone out there, to you listening, as we close out 2025, the tools, they're not going to save us. What will transform everything is from the inside out, when you unlock yourself from the inside. Because once you've freed yourself from the cage that you've been living in, looking at the world through systems, patterns will start to appear, patterns you've never chose. The performances that we never really questioned until this year for some reason. You'll finally be able to see what's been built. The tools were always there. They were in different forms, different versions and generations of technology, but we were all looking through different lenses and cage bars. That's the work of 2025 as we lean into 2026. We're wrapping up the fact that we don't need to learn blockchain first. We need to unlock ourselves first so that the flow of commerce starts with us. Then the decentralized workshop is going to make sense. Then my safe harbor community becomes visible. Then you can discover that you can bring your whole self to the edge, just as many of these voices in this marketplace are doing right now. But that's where the ocean meets you there. Happy New Year. Here's to an abundant, thriving 2026. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next year. Thank you for listening to Unlocking Commerce and Business. If this conversation resonated, here's what you can do. Subscribe for weekly conversations with survivors, innovators, and changemakers, building regenerative alternatives to extractive commerce. Share this episode with collaborators, partners, funders, and changemakers in your network. The people ready for restorative commerce need to hear these voices. Drop a comment below. Tell us what patterns you're recognizing or what solutions you're building. We read every one. Commerce is everywhere, and healing extraction patterns inside our communities creates regenerative commerce outside. Like a lighthouse, we're here, exploring and cutting through fog, pointing toward what works. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Until next time, explore courageously, build sovereignly. You are the source and store of value. This is Connie Davis signing off. Thank you for being here.